All right, Shalom. It's your brother Quashab coming back at you with another lesson. Now, before I get started, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachak Wadash, and double honors to the apostles and elders, great millstone, who taught me this truth and rule well. And peace and blessings, salutations be to those who elect, as well as those that believe in the gospel, and may you endure to the end, Lord willing. All right, and as you can see, I'll just get into a lesson today, just predicated on, Trump with this, this silver disturbance response, all right, that he's coming up with. And, this guy's been pulling shit out of his ass left and right, all right. And I'm going to just read a little bit in here. As you can see, it says, following President Trump's order, members of National Guard will begin deploying across the Capitol today. Roughly 800 Guard members will be mobilized for the mission, right, with 100 to 200 active at any given time. You see? So, and this is nothing but the police state, all right, in which, I'll wait to make this point, but, I'm going to just keep reading, all right? Now, it says, their primary duties will include providing a visible, presence to deter crime, handling administrative and logical tasks, and support law enforcement operations throughout the city. All right, which, this is, a police state, all right, which, this guy's already do what he's doing in the name of immigration, customs enforcement, all right, also known as ICE. All right, he's already militarized them, you see, and we're still nothing but a federal government. What's the right word? But nevertheless, they're part of the federal government, right? They're like a police for illegal immigrants, quote unquote, right? And this guy's this is what he's been doing, man. All right, just being sporadic. All right, just doing shit, right? So it says, notably, they will not be authorized to carry weapons during patrols, but the guard will have immediate access to them for emergencies. Now, that didn't make any sense to me, right? Regular local police can carry weapons, so why can't members of the U.S. military, right? Now, this is the point I wanted to get to. It says, meeting with DOJ ahead of the deployment, Attorney General Pam Bondi met with D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser, Police Chief Pamela Smith, and senior DOJ officials to discuss the coordination. All right, which I was listening to this the mayor, all right, Muriel Bowser, and she was saying, basically that it's an overreach, all right, and the crime in D.C. is not that bad, right? Now, he's only doing this because I believe it's something that goes on with Washington, D.C. It's not an actual part of one of the, I forget the exact terminology, but, it actually belongs to the federal government, all right, if I can put it that way. And Salakia for the lack of better terms of explaining it, but they're not a city, all right, that is operated like a New Orleans, okay, per se, all right. They're operated, I believe, straight out of the federal government, all right, this is how, he's able to do these things, because it's basically under federal control already, right? It's not controlled by the state, in which this lady, the mayor, Muriel Bowser, she was saying that the crime is the same way it's always been, all right? It's actually been worse than what it is, you see. But, here comes the cruel Lord, coming with his devices, man, and that's just exactly what it is. We told you that this guy was going to usher in the mark of the beast, all right, and we told you that this guy is going to be the one to bring forth all hell breaking loose here in America, man, all right, and he's already setting things up for him to bring order, all right, out of these chaotic situations that's going to erupt here in America, all right. Now, they have, I believe that was it, all right, because I wanted to go into this article, right? Now it says Trump plans military reaction force to use against Americans, right? And we told you, pursuing Isaiah the 19th chapter, all right, that this guy, he was going to be that cruel Lord, all right, and ultimately he's going to be the one to set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, all right? And what you see now, all right, America being totally divided, all right? It's Isaiah 19:2. It says, and I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, all right, which the modern day Egyptians are who? They are the Americans, man, all right? And which the modern day Egypt is here in America, all right? So you can actually say, which is future prophecy, all right, I will set the Americans against the Americans, man, all right? In which Egypt, it just means a house of bondage, all right? Furthermore, it explains that, you know, we are in spiritual Egypt, all right? It says, and they shall fight every one against his brother and every one against his neighbor, city against city and kingdom against kingdom. You see? And this is the fight that's coming, all right? Why do you think this guy is using a military reaction forces? Because people are going to start getting upset, all right? People are actually going to start causing uproars, riots, all right, as the things that we saw in 2020, man. You see? And it's coming back in a much bigger way, you know? But before it happens, you know, he's actually getting prepared, right? He's signing all of these bills, all right, ushering all of the legislation in for the MOTB, you know? Well, it's only a matter of time before these things be implemented, right? When they get implemented, well, there's other laws, okay? Let me get that in Wisdom of Solomon, where it says, let our strength be the law of justice, all right? Because that's what Esau, Edom, all right, that's where their strength lies at, in the legislation, okay? All right, it's Wisdom of Solomon 2:11. It says, let our strength be the law of justice, for that which is feeble is found to be nothing work, all right? And that's their strength, the law of justice, all right? The legislation, you see? This is how they get Jake all entangled, you know, into the system, all right? And into the different things that they're going to push, you see? Because they're going to come back and say, oh, well, we signed a law into that already, you know? Things that have been signed in years ago, all right? Case in point was Operation Garden Plot, all right? And which was which was an operation, you know, to let me just get it real quick. All right, which, you know, this was an actual operation, man, before 9/11, and this is it's called Complan 2502, also known as U.S. Complan 2502. It's the U.S. Department of Defense's concept plan for responding to a domestic civil disturbance. All right, for responding to a domestic civil disturbance. So they already have these things written into the government, right? Straight into the legislation already. You see? But what Trump is doing, he's actually tying it into play in real time, all right? Using these small things, all right, such as cities like Washington. All right, we know you a couple months back that he tried to do the same thing in LA, all right? But what he actually did was mobilize the National Guard to actually guard federal buildings, you see? But there's already things in play, such as this, all right? In which it says it supersedes the earlier Operation Garden Plot, right? In which that was the original operation, you know, for domestic civil disturbance, you know, in order to mobilize and use their own military against their own people, man, all right? And that's exactly what's going to happen, pursuing the biblical prophecy, as I just read in Isaiah the 19th chapter, you know? But I'll read a few points in this, all right? It says, this plan provides a framework for the federal government and the military to assist state and local authorities, during a major civil disturbance, particularly in the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks. All right, we already know that through the different news and information of things, that there's sleeper cells here, right, and that we are days away from seeing something that's going to make 9/11, all right, look like a walk in the park, you know. But it says, let me see something. All right, it says, what was the point in here I was looking for specifically? Right, the assumed role. It says the planned existence implies that in extreme circumstances where state and local authorities are overwhelmed and unable to maintain order, the federal government could assume a leading role, right? Which is what? A hostile takeover of things. See? Coming in the name of assistance, right? As we see, as we're going to get into with the article, right? It says, with the potential for National Guard and federal forces to be used for domestic security. In essence, the Complan 2502 is the current military plan to handle large-scale domestic civil unrest, building upon the lessons and frameworks of its predecessor, Operation Garden Plot, right? And which, you know, I have that actually saved on my phone, all right, Operation Garden Plot, you know, and another, I believe it's a documentary, it's called America Under Siege, and it was written by, I think it's Linda Thomas, all right, in which that's another one, you know, you can go and check that out, man, you know. A lot of good information, a lot of different things that you can learn, all right, for what Esau Edom has planned to do in this place in order to establish his NW0, all right. But that's pretty much it for this. You know, I'll read the article, finish the article out, and I got maybe a couple precepts, all right. Now it says President Trump and the Pentagon are considering creating a full-time domestic civil disturbance quick reaction force, all right, and that goes hand in hand, all right, with Complan 2502. You see? Well, where are all these big civil disturbances, man? All right, for brothers that live in the cities, you know, we haven't seen any. So why is there such a big deal, all right, a massive gear up for these things, man? All right. Because they'll tell you, hey, man, something's getting ready to go down, you know? It says that could be called on to quash civil unrest and protest at a moment's notice. All right, the force will be made up of about 600 National Guard troops, half of which will be based on military bases in Alabama and Arizona, ready at all times to fly into any given city or state to lay down Trump's law. They have military-style weapons and riot gear with dispatch from their bases in waves of 100 soldiers and will cycle out after 90 days to limit burnout, all right? And, you know, as it says, they have military-style weapons and riot gear, you know? But in the other posts, that's why I say that just doesn't make any sense that they are not going to have any weapons. You know, if someone's coming there to stop something, you're not just going to send them out there with no weapons, man. All right? It's clear, like it says here, that they're going to have military-style weapons, all right? And people, case in point, like the, what was it? The SV something. One of those Silicon Valley Bank. Yeah, SVB. You know, when a bank actually was, I believe it wasn't FDIC insured or whatnot, or they only could cover like up to $500,000, in which they lost millions of dollars, all right, within a blanket of an eye. People wasn't getting no paychecks, all right. These type of situations can come into play easily, all right, and have these civil disturbances arise, all right. People are starting to riot, you know, especially in these times, man, all right. Majority of Americans are already struggling, you see. So if something of that nature happens again, you know, well, who's to tell if they can actually cool it off, right? They sending 100 soldiers, but they may need to send a whole platoon, man, you know. And these are the things that we have to look forward to, all right, as we inch closer and closer to prophecy being fulfilled. You see? So I say, if the Lord is setting the Americans against the Americans, man, well, I tell you in Mark 3:26 that nation can't stand. All right? Grab it real quick. This is the book of Mark, chapter 3. Verse 23, it says, and he called unto him and said unto them in parables, how can Satan cast out Satan? Question mark. Right? It says, and if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. So you have people that's divided on the decisions that their so-called president is making. All right? They don't want these things. They say, well, we didn't vote for that. Oh, you said when you was running, you wasn't going to do that. Right? But that's why the scriptures tell you, woe to them. Woe to them that go down to Egypt for help, man. You see? And what? They don't seek the Holy One of Israel, right? They don't seek the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. You see? It said, if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. And if Satan rise up against himself and be divided, he cannot stand, but had an end. All right? And that's where we at now. All right? Seeing the end of Esau Edom, all right, and his rulership, man. You know? But I believe, let me see. I was saying in this article. All right, it says, yep, that's what I wanted to get. It says, Trump is allowed to call upon a National Guard like this under 2 federal codes, Title 10 and Title 32. While Title 10 gives the president jurisdiction to order the National Guard to aid local police without making any arrests or leading any investigations. Trump would primarily employ Title 32 for this type of force. That will authorize him to use, all right, fucking shit. So like that will authorize him to use, okay, the Guard's federally funded status to expand its powers in states with unrest. So states with an S. All right. So it's telling you he's getting ready to put a deployment service here and there. All right, they can get to from the East Coast to the West Coast within a matter of hours. Right. Arizona covers what? The Western Hemisphere. Right. You put some in Alabama, that covers the Eastern Hemisphere. Right. So they can respond to any situation within hours, man. You know? And that's why that devil is doing this. Yeah, that's it right here, that point I was speaking about earlier, which he can invoke over Washington, D.C., because I believe it's like federalized or something. It says this reporting comes just a day after Trump announced his plans to seize control, all right? Just a day after Trump announced his plans to seize control of Washington, D.C., police force in the invocation of Section 740 of the D.C. Home Rule Act, right? Of 1973, he threatened increased police force and presence to clean up homeless people in slums, right? And this is in every city, you see? So why would you need the National Guard to clean these type of things up when it's in all of the cities, man? Why would you need the National Guard to do that? Well, just invoke this Home Rule Act, all right? And you can just federalize them without anybody telling you nothing. You see, because the only reason he hasn't done it anywhere else, is because he can't. You see? So, and to clean up the homeless people in slums and to have to use the National Guard is crazy work, man. People need to wake the hell up and see what's going on. Something is about to happen here in America, man. All right? But, that's a spirit, man. You know, sirens and the ambulance is going by, you know. But that was pretty much it. You know, I'm ended off probably 2nd Ezra 15th chapter. Right. The 2nd Ezra 15, verse 15, it says, "For the sword and their destruction draw nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. For there shall be sedition among men, evading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, in the course of their actions shall stand in their power." All right, and this scripture is what you call civil unrest, man. All right, when this starts to happen, when this prophecy is being fulfilled, well, that's where you're going to see these troops out. All right, you're going to see Humvees and tanks, all right, in your neighborhoods, man, you know. And that's why it's going to usher in a martial law. You see, because verse 17, it says, "A man shall desire to go into the city and shall not be able." All right, and that's the LOCK downs right there. All right, the LDs, man. That's it right there, you know, because there's going to be a lot of civil disturbances going. All right, and it's going to come to a point, you know, to where this devil is going to activate that Con Plan 2502. Okay, and shit's getting ready to get real, man. You know, so with that, you know, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I know it's kind of long-winded with the information. All right, but Lord willing, it was edifying. So with that, I'm gonna give all praises, glory, infinite honors unto Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rikakodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings. Salutations be to the hopeful elect. Until next time, I say shalom.